Week one of the NFL season ends with the 49ers rout of the New York Jets. How did it happen? And the breakout of a new running back in San Francisco, Jordan Mason. How long will Christian McCaffrey be out? Other injury news around the league on this Overreaction Tuesday. Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love and appreciate all of our everydayers out there. Make sure you're subscribed up. Do it now. Hit subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. We got a lot to get into today and to kind of wrap up some news around the league, what we think and maybe an overreaction of who the good and bad teams are in the NFL and what we can hang our hats on from what we saw in week one around the league. And it starts, Matt, with the 49ers win over the New York Jets 32-19. And I don't think the final score even tells the story about how thoroughly the 49ers beat the Jets, especially being able to run all over them, even without Christian McCaffrey, who was a late scratch, inactives, probably surprised a lot of fantasy players out there. And those that didn't have the handcuff in Jordan Mason were probably scrambling on a Monday night, not realizing that the first pick in their fantasy draft wasn't going to be in their lineup and might have got a lot of zeros out there at running back. And so if you listen to this podcast, though, Matt, you know that I was a big fan of Jordan Mason, and I'm not surprised at all about how good Jordan Mason looked out there. 147 yards on the ground. He is the big story on this Tuesday after the 49ers beat up on the New York Jets in week one.
Yeah, I think in a mailbag a couple weeks ago at Williamson NFL asked you about the backup situation here and tell us about Mason. And you laid it out great, and he looked great, and the offense looked great. And it doesn't surprise me that San Francisco, who I think is probably the best offense in the league, scored 32 points and were a dominant unit. We see that all the time from them. But I'm pretty disappointed in the Jets. And I thought their defense would put up more of a fight in this game. Allowing the Niners to rush for 180 yards, hold the ball for 38-40 out of 60 minutes, and really not be that much of an obstacle for a great Niner offense. I was pretty let down by the Jets defense overall.
I was let down by the offense and the defense.
Yeah, the offense wasn't great, but
this is a team that drops in a Hall of Fame level quarterback in an offense that had some of the worst quarterback play in the league in the last few years. And you thought there would have been a big jump in play there. And we finally saw a full game of Aaron Rodgers as a New York Jet. And by the way, his Achilles, I don't think we'll talk a little bit more about some injured quarterbacks. And look, he's 4 years old. His Achilles injury, I don't know that it's maybe, fully healed or not, or maybe he doesn't trust it. But the times when Aaron Rodgers thought, oh, this is when I get out of the pocket and make a play, he didn't look good moving around and trying to get out of the pocket. And even when he was throwing from within the pocket, he was really all of his weight out on his front foot and wasn't driving off of that back foot. And it didn't affect the way he threw the football necessarily, but clearly it's an injury that's going to affect him. And he's in a different part of his career now as an NFL quarterback. 13 of 21 passing for Aaron Rodgers, only 167 yards. He had a touchdown and an interception. The touchdown pass was the classic broken play. There was an offsides free play for Aaron Rodgers, and he found Alan Lazard for a touchdown. And aside from one drive where he was peppering Garrett Wilson with targets, and I think most of, if not all of Garrett Wilson's receptions came on that one drive, and they went down the field and scored. And then at that point in the first quarter, late in the first quarter, the Jets were up 7-3. And I thought, okay, there it is. Rodgers in rhythm. There's a star receiver in Garrett Wilson. This is how it's going to go. 3 and out on the next drive, and then the 49ers just walked away from the Jets the rest of the game and dominated. Now, that was the only good drive of the game before garbage time when they put out some points at the end of the game.
Yeah, again, not very competitive. Didn't miss McCaffrey. The defense was swarming. It shows to me that Shanahan is such a good coach, and preparation. You know, I mean, give that long of an off season. Like the Steelers played the Niners, as you remember, to start the season last year. It was like, man, these guys are ready for this game. You know what I mean? And not that the Jets weren't, but there were so many teams around the league. And you opened yesterday's show with, man, the people that didn't play their guys sure looked like it this year. And there was a lot of teams in week one that did not put out a great product. And the Niners are hitting this thing full go, you know?
The Niners are in it to win it. That's for sure. They did start out a little slow in this one as well. And they did cancel some joint practices they had this offseason because of some injuries. And you didn't have a 100% Trent Williams. He went and got an IV in the fourth quarter, but played every snap and didn't give up a pressure before that. Brandon Ayuk didn't look quite himself, dropped a potential touchdown pass from Purdy's best pass of the game. So Purdy didn't have a touchdown, but he didn't throw an interception either. He was classic Brock Purdy in this game. Had some nice throws out there, 19 of 29 for 231 yards passing for Brock Purdy. The Breece Hall is one of the stars that you'd expected to be big in this game. He had a touchdown, but he also averaged about 2 yards per carry aside from like one nice run in the game.
Yeah.
And it was just, nothing really working great for the Jets in this game. And then just got bullied by a team like the 49ers with their backup running back running for 147 yards.
Do you get the feeling that the Jets are maybe two, but definitely one weapon away? Like if they had a tight end that was Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Pat Freiermuth level, I don't even need Kelsey or Mike Williams in his prime, not now when he's hardly out there. You know what I mean? Like there's only two guys that really deserve the football for the Jets.
Wow. Tyler Conklin disrespect, Matt.
A little bit.
Well, Alan Lazard had 2 touchdowns in this one. It seems like Rodgers really wants to get him the football. He was 6 for 69 and or 89 yards, excuse me, and it did have the 2 touchdowns. One was, like I mentioned, the free play. I don't know. You got Breece Hall, one of the better running backs in the league. I think Garrett Wilson's a star in the making, and you got a good quarterback. I think that's enough. I think it was up front. They just got beat up. On the offensive line. They didn't create anything in the running game, and they didn't stop the 49ers run game. You can't win football games like that. So I don't think I blame the skill positions. I think I blame up front a little bit, and it looked like a team that didn't really come to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're not wrong about that either. And they did invest a lot in this O-line. Maybe it comes together. I don't think that'll be the norm for their offensive front. I mean, I would imagine it gets better than that going forward. And a lot of new pieces sometimes take a little time to gel when an offensive line, but maybe Morgan Moses isn't that good and Tyron Smith's over the hill and Fashanu isn't ready. And then you're back to square one,
And this is Overreaction Tuesday.
Yeah, it sure is.
Are the Jets a bad football team?
I'm going to say no, but I did pick them plus the points. I thought this would be a competitive game, and it wasn't, and that's concerning.
That is concerning. When you don't look like you belong in the same field as another team, even if it's one of the better teams in the league, I don't think it's an overreaction to think the 49ers are one of the better teams in the league. I think we expected that, and they're a team that can absorb the loss of a star player like Christian McCaffrey and go out and like nothing is different at all. You expect a little more competitiveness. Now, this is week one. Week ones can be weird. If you go back and look what happened in week one last year, things changed a lot from then. So we'll see. I'm not going to bury the Jets quite yet in an overreaction. But if you're a Jets fan, you're watching that game and you're thinking to yourself, looks like the same old stinking Jets.
It's a little concerning, that's for sure.
All right, let's talk a little bit of injury news around the league. Some players that are going to be out, what that means for those teams, for your fantasy teams, for the league as a whole. And some more overreactions from this Tuesday following a week one of NFL football next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Hims. No man wants to lose his hair, but for men, it's actually very common. And now with Hims, the solution is simple. Try Hims hair loss solutions, and you'll be joining hundreds of thousands of subscribers who got their flow back. Hims makes treating hair loss simple with doctor-trusted treatment options and clinically proven ingredients like finasteride and minoxidil that can regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. Hims provides access to a range of hair loss treatments that work all from the comfort of your couch. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/LockedOnNFL. That's hims.com, HIMS /LockedOnNFL for your personalized hair loss treatment options. hims.com/LockedOnNFL. Results vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Sticking with that 49ers running back situation on the injury front, Matt, and it was a little bit of a surprise to people, especially based on earlier on in the week that, GM John Lynch was on the radio saying, he looks fine. Looks like Christian McCaffrey. That's a good thing. He's going to play. We're all good. And he ends up not playing. So I don't know if he aggravated the calf/Achilles injury. It's a little worrisome, Matt, because this is an injury he was dealing with, whether it's a new one or a flare-up of the same one, or he aggravated it. He dealt with this starting in around week 17 last season. Mm-hmm. And so that's not good if he's still dealing with something from 7 months, right? Or even something where he was out from training camp and on the shelf, didn't play in the preseason, and he's still not ready to go in week 1. And according to Adam Schefter, there's a real chance that he doesn't play again in week 2. So obviously for your fantasy teams, if you haven't already picked up Jordan Mason, he's probably not available in your league anyway, because I think he was drafted in a lot of deeper leagues for sure. You might not be scrambling for some other running backs. Maybe we'll have some ideas of who those running backs might be to pick up on your waiver wire this week, Matt. But Christian McCaffrey could miss week number 2 as well.
And I assume you're under this. I guess I'll ask you. You're not rushing him back if you're in charge of the Niners, right? I mean, you did quite well without him. What's that?
You clearly don't have to.
Right.
And look, and I've been talking about this, and a lot of people, and this is sort of my argument for Brock Purdy over Christian McCaffrey last year as the MVP of the team. And I was saying this offseason, and we do a lot of things on Locked On 49ers, and who's the most important players on the team and a lot of that stuff. And
of course,
Christian McCaffrey wasn't 1, he wasn't 2, wasn't 3, wasn't 4, wasn't 5 for me. Because I'm like, I would 100% rather play without Christian McCaffrey than without Brock Purdy. You know what I mean? Without Nick Bosa.
Trent Williams has to be on
Fred
that list.
Warner, Trent Williams.
Yeah. Okay.
Debo and Ayuk. Like, you start to go down the list, and I would rather play without Christian McCaffrey and all of them. And we saw on Monday Night Football why that is. And that's why I am the chairman of the West Coast chapter of Running Backs Don't Matter. And Christian McCaffrey matters because he's a really good player. But if you have a good running game and you're a Shanahan offense, you can run the ball with Raheem Mostert, with Matt Breida, with Steve Slayton, with Alfred Morris, with Elijah Mitchell, and with Jordan Mason. And of course, it looks awesome with Christian McCaffrey. And so that's why I'm not worried about the Christian McCaffrey injury. Make sure he's good. And then when he's good, he adds more dynamic element. And who knows, maybe he would have gone for 200 yards instead of 150 on Monday Night Football if they had Christian McCaffrey in there. It's not saying that he's not good and they don't miss him. You want to get him back, but get him back healthy and be smart about it. And Jordan Mason showed you that you've got a back that can carry the load and handle it while he's out. So there's no need to rush him back. You're not in a place where you have to force him back onto the field.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I'm sure there's some listeners going, wow, that's low on the value to the Niner list for McCaffrey. And you're not talking about his great receiving skills. And those receiving skills are wonderful, but that's not enough to decipher him over Mason as opposed to what Warner would be like out of the lineup, or Bosa, or even maybe Kittle.
That's really important in winning that football game last night. Yeah, it is nothing against Christian McCaffrey. It's just that's the position, and if you can block it up front, and we talked about this with Saquon Barkley right after the Friday night game. It was like Saquon Barkley was great, and he's awesome.
Yeah, he was great.
Driving a truck through some of those holes that the Philadelphia Eagles were creating up front against the Green Bay Packers, and that's the most important thing. It's more important than who's carrying the rock, as long as you have a good ball player carrying the rock, and you don't want to scrub back there either.
I agree.
Puka Nacua is going to miss 4 weeks at least, it looks like, with a knee injury. And
at least, I mean, that's it. He has to miss 4. He's on injury reserve, right?
Right. And so that's not a great situation, but there's some talent there. Jordan Whittington is a player for the Rams, Matt, that a lot of people are hyping up as a very Puka-like player. Tyler Johnson might be the first man up, and he's been kind of turning some heads in LA too. And Stafford can deal and throw the ball to whoever it's going to be. So whatever player steps into the lineup there, and I think Demarcus Robinson's a good player, but he was already out there in 3 wide receiver sets. I don't think his role changes. So who you picking up there? Do you think this really affects the Rams a whole lot on offense?
I do, but we've seen this offense be quite good minus Cup or Nacua, with just one target hog and then others and scheme and all that. But boy, I two things. Through week 1, Cooper Kupp has like a 43% target share for his team, which is by far number one and unsustainable and just a massive number. I mean, almost half the throws that come out of Stafford's hands go to Kupp through one game. And of course that'll come down. But you already got Nacua out, and the O-line is so banged up. I mean, the backup tackles, Avila got moved from center back to guard, and then he's going to be out for a little bit as well.
I think he's 4 to 6 weeks.
I think so too. I mean, they're compounding really quick, and like Whittingham's interesting to me, and maybe get a tight end a little more involved and all those things. But I would be very frightened if I was in the Rams neighborhood.
You don't love that at all.
No.
With the Rams, and you start because you're tenuous. You're leaning on a few guys, and one of the things you're leaning on is having a really good offensive line. So that starts to get a little bit worrisome there if you are the Los Angeles Rams.
It's just always been a top heavy roster, not stars and scrubs, but they invest heavily in Donald, Ramsey, whoever. I mean, all those guys over the years that they gave up picks for, and that's just what they believe in, and they've won a lot of games that way. But we've seen when that goes bad too, it can get real bad real quick.
Jordan Love out 3 to 6 weeks is the diagnosis, sprained MCL there. What are your thoughts about Malik Willis filling in? He's been around for only a few weeks, and he'll be the starting quarterback officially. We kind of already knew, but he'll be the starting quarterback, Matt LaFleur told reporters Monday, and it's Malik Willis now leading the Green Bay Packers.
I think it's horrible. I mean, I think it could derail their season and make them a really bad offense for quite a bit. And it's really going to test LaFleur's great offensive abilities. I mean, I think he's one of the best coaches to handle such a tragedy, but it's a tragedy. I mean, I don't think he was going to make the Titans. I mean, more or less. Like, he's a borderline roster player. He's not Justin Fields filling in for Russell Wilson, that's been around the block and you can run a lot with him. Of course, you're going to run a lot with him, but I don't think he can get the football to, spread it around to those great receivers. I don't like how Green Bay's O-line played, and they'll probably get better, but I think that there was some warts there. I don't think it's an overreaction at all to say Green Bay goes from one of the best teams in the league to bottom 10. I mean, I'm probably going to fill out power ranks tonight. Our buddy Ross just sent the email. And if we're looking at it, how I look at power ranks, how good are you today, this minute? They're going to be like 25th for me. I mean, really low.
Yeah, this is a week 2 power rankings. How good are these teams in week 2? And the Packers dropped quite a bit, and we'll see if they're able to overcome it there. And it's a huge question. And the offense has to look a little bit different, right? Because you have to lean into what Malik Willis's strengths are. So
he hasn't even shown flashes to me, I mean, other than athletic ability. Like even in the preseason, it's not like, oh, well, he did a lot of good things. He looks in control, distributing the ball, accurate, nice touch. No, he looks like an athlete that is still a year away from being a year away.
And the Packers haven't done anything, right? With veteran quarterbacks, they got Sean Clifford, who they elevated, right? And he was
that's what I'm aware of. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Sean Clifford, and it's.
I thought Tannehill might get a call, but
I would think that would already happen, right? You would have to get someone in there, and they haven't done anything. Unless maybe that means they're burning up the phones right now after week 1, and Tuesday's a big day to be able to do some transactions like that. So maybe we have a trade in the works and potentially a veteran players coming in to Green Bay. I would think they have to do something because 6 weeks is pretty important. If they think it's only 3 weeks, maybe you limp through that, but you kind of got to do something and not allow your season to get derailed. You got to raise the floor, basically.
We could probably come up with 10 names that are in that Case Keenum level of lifetime backups guys, and I'd be a lot more comfortable with somebody like that.
Really good news for the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen had a hand injury. He's been cleared to practice and will play Thursday. It's a short week, so he's good. Hopefully that doesn't affect how he plays. It's kind of a hand wrist injury, heavily taped after week 1's win over the Cardinals, but looks like he avoided serious injury and will play Thursday against the Miami Dolphins on a short
week. I was a little concerned. I
Yeah.
mean, Miami's got a couple guys banged up too. We'll get more info on that, but I hate these short weeks. I mean, I say it every year. It's the first one all of a sudden, and it's a pivotal game. What if you didn't have Josh Allen because it's a couple days earlier than Sunday?
It is Overreaction Tuesday now, Matt, and we'll finish up this episode of Peacock and Williamson with the Overreactions next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. There's a reason FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. You hear us talk about them all the time, and there's a little something different for all of you to start this NFL season. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And, of course, on FanDuel, bet on all your favorite football games, all the prop bets every single week, Major League Baseball every single day. You got motorsports, you got combat sports, and we got even NHL and NBA firing up pretty soon here in the fall. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sports book. That is FanDuel.com. All right, what are we overreacting to on this Tuesday? Can we start with the good in the top of the NFL? Who's doing those power rankings? A little sneak peek. Who's #1 for you? The Chiefs, 49ers, both with big wins to start and end week #1. Like, how does it look for you at the top, especially with the team like the Packers for sure dropping out?
Haven't given that a ton of thought, and I will do power ranks tonight, but I don't think there's any reason to move. I think my top 3 in the preseason were Chiefs, 49ers, Lions, and they probably will be again.
Ravens probably don't fall, even though they lost week 1. Like they don't move a lot.
I expected O-line issues, but not to that degree.
Ooh, so they showed some issues that might drop down for you a little bit, huh?
I think. I mean, I'm not sure who's jumping up. I mean, maybe a Dallas, somebody like that. I think is worthy of going north at least. From where we had them, but I had the Ravens and Bengals pretty high, and I don't know that either one goes up for sure. I mean, I think you need to be concerned a little.
So kind of tying into the injury conversation, there are guys that are playing on the field that aren't going to miss time, but whether it's Joe Burrow or Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins, even Aaron Rodgers didn't look like old Aaron Rodgers as far as how he's moving around, how he's using his legs. Is it time to be worried about some of those quarterbacks, man?
I think so. I mean, Burrow's the one I'm least concerned with, but I thought he played quite poorly and should have mentioned this more yesterday. I mean, the Bengals starting season slow is massively becoming a trend. And I forget who tweeted us, my apologies, saying, is it time to worry a little bit about Coach Taylor with Cincinnati? Because the same thing seemed to happen year after year. And I think that is concerning.
And clearly there's something with, and I don't know how you could be perfectly mid-season on the same page with your star wide receiver and Jamar Chase with how his hold in and hold out weird situation went. And that didn't look good. It was kind of like he wasn't looking at him a lot and he was looking at him. It was off. It was definitely off.
Very off.
Or whatever reason it was for the Cincinnati Bengals in week 1. So I think if you're overreacting, you're getting pretty worried. I'm not quite there yet with the Bengals, but I think I might be there with Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons because that looked really bad. And he
really bad
moving properly. And Coach Raheem Morris was asked about it. And he said, nope, he's fine. He's healthy. But it's like, no, he's not. He didn't. That's healthy Kirk Cousins. Then he should probably be the backup because that did not look good on Sunday.
Is it an overreaction to put Dallas or Houston as the 4th best team in the league, not moving my top 3 over a Cincy, a Baltimore, teams like that? I think I'm going to do that. I think Dallas and Houston will probably be 4. Dallas will probably be 5.
Oh, yeah. Neutral field. I think Houston and Dallas should be favored over the Bengals in week 2.
Over the Ravens?
I just don't get worried about the Ravens.
Yeah,
They're
yeah, I
gonna
know what you
figure
mean.
it out. They'll be fine. I don't move them down, but I think Houston and Dallas would be right there. I think it'd be close.
I
Like, would
agree.
it just be a pick 'em game in a neutral field if you're making the line for those games?
Pretty close, but I probably will have the Ravens right behind them in power ranks. Like that
Behind
might
them.
be my tier 2. I mean,
So
I'm
4 or
doing this on the
5.
fly, but top 3 and then those next 3.
So if we're not forgetting anybody, 4 or 5 for you might be after KC, San Francisco,
Detroit.
Detroit,
Then I'll probably go Houston,
Houston,
Dallas,
Dallas.
Baltimore. Draw a line again.
I can't really argue with that, I don't think.
Okay. So if we look at the other spectrum, I always hate, I mean, I've been in the media now for like 20 some years, and the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday after week 1, I say a lot of stupid things, and people keep receipts, and how could you think that? So trust me, I very much understand that when you make a blanket statement this early in the long season, you're usually wrong. But is the Panthers season over? Is the Giants season over?
They looked disastrous. They looked bad.
Disastrous.
They looked not any better than they were before. It was a division rival that just absolutely trounced them. I don't know how you can think that the Panthers are okay. Like, I'm ready to bury the Panthers after week 1 for sure. Like, they're done.
I am too. I'm not quite there on the Giants.
But no, I'm there on the yeah, bury the Giants too. Right next.
Okay.
We need 2 spots. It's for the Giants, for the New York Giants 2024 season and the Carolina Panthers 2024 season.
Like, I'm definitely not ready to bury all the rookie quarterbacks. Richardson, Nick, or even including Richardson. Especially Nix and Williams and Daniels. They'll get better. Bryce Young will probably get better, but I don't think the Panthers will get better.
Right. That's the problem with the Panthers and the Giants. What's the path to them being so much better than they were before?
Like, Washington will probably get better, but just be short on talent on defensive end and most of their defense and the O-line. But by week 8, we might be like, he's a pretty good quarterback and they're getting better. And another offseason, they're 500 next year. And that's progress, I don't know where you could write that story with the Panthers right now.
I would be ready to be a little bit more worried about the Bears. The way they won, I don't think is sustainable necessarily. And you're starting a rookie quarterback who had the fewest passing yards of any quarterback that started in week 1.
I was kind of going to bring them and the Titans up together because
right.
They both kind of lost that game.
Right. Yeah. It feels that way.
Levis was horrible.
And if the Bears weren't playing against the Titans, I'm sure they're 0-1 to start the year. Romo Dunze, by the way, is a little bit banged up after maybe getting a couple targets in his rookie, his first game as a rookie. They've got enough weapons, and the defense should be okay. But it's got to come together. So it certainly wouldn't bury the Bears, but you want to start to see a little bit more. And I think they're lucky to get out of week 1 with a win. And the Titans, if your quarterback's gonna throw ugly pick sixes like Levis did in week 1, then that's gonna be a long season because I think they, I love the combination, by the way, at left tackle and left guard and just moving people out of the way. And so I think they're going to be okay. The Titans are, and they're going to be scrappy. So I wouldn't bury them necessarily, but you need to be better at quarterback than Will Levis was in week 1.
Yeah. The second half was miserable. And I do think he's going to be a roller coaster. There'll be some great moments. I mean, he's very aggressive and there'll be some really bad moments. So I'm not a fan to begin with. I also have a shovel out for the Broncos.
Just under-talented or rookie quarterback?
I mean, the Steelers are going to Denver next week, so I've really dug into the nuts and bolts of this team. And other than Surtain and certainly Nix and some so-so pieces on offense, the Suttons and Minerts and, some of the O-line, I just don't think they have any good players. I mean, like, the defense Surtain's the only one on their defense that was drafted in the first round. Like, they don't even have the reclamation project that didn't hit with his first team, but he's talented first rounder that maybe they revitalized his career type guy, Well,
here's the thing. And despite that, and despite Nick's like kind of just being dink and dunk in the passing game on offense, they still hung in there. against the Seattle
And they won
Seahawks.
8 games last year. I mean,
Yeah.
Peyton knows how to win in this league.
Right.
That's why I just got the shovel out. I didn't put it in the ground yet.
It shovels out, but there's got to be some improvement from your rookie quarterback. And, so, yeah, I'm definitely not there yet. How about this?
They could beat the Steelers this week. I mean, like, their record in September in Denver is remarkably good because everyone that goes there early in the season can't breathe, Do
the Steelers have the best record in NFL history over the last couple of years without being able to score touchdowns?
It's funny you brought that up because I just pulled this stat out 10 minutes before we hit record. Let me find it here real quick.
Okay.
it's so Tomlin. Here we go. The Steelers have now won 5 games without scoring an offensive touchdown under Mike Tomlin. That's the second most in the league since 2007. They won 5 games without scoring an offensive touchdown since 2007. I mean, that is very Tomlin-esque.
One more quick note on week 1. The new kickoff. Is the new kickoff? We saw the Steelers kick 6 field goals. We saw the 49ers kick 6 field goals. That extra 10 yards. If teams are starting on the 30, you have to go 10 fewer yards to get into field goal range. Are we going to see more field goals than ever this year? And is that an unintended, result of the new kickoff?
Maybe, but I would counter that by saying maybe because we saw fewer touchdowns. Like, I don't know what the touchdown numbers were, but I heard, maybe you even told me this, and it held true after last night, that was the fewest passing yards in week 1 since like 2010.
Yeah, the Monday night game would have had to been combined 600 and something passing yards, and they were like, a few hundred yards short of that. So
maybe teams aren't scoring, but they're getting in field goal range.
Right. And it was already going that way last year, and there was fewer this season in week 1 passing yards than last year even.
And it's an NFL problem. I mean, scoring has been down consistently since that COVID year when there was no one in the seats and holding was legal and points were galore. We were talking about on a fantasy segment I did on a different show. It was like there's like no quarterbacks that threw over 300 yards. There's hardly any receivers that had big games unless they caught a bomb. Like AJ Brown and Tyreek got these long ones, but there weren't many big producers.
One more question for you, Matt, to wrap up week 1. And so the biggest fallers, because of the Jordan Love injury, the Packers and the Atlanta Falcons, probably for me, were the 2 biggest fallers in the power rankings going into week 2. Is the biggest riser
Cleveland might be there too.
Yeah, I can buy Cleveland because I had them pretty high before.
Yeah.
I expect better quarterback play. And I think
they were
QBR, Watson's QBR in his first 2 years with Cleveland is worse than Sam Darnold's QBR for his first 2 years with the Jets.
Wow. I get it. I mean, they were probably like 12 for me going into the season. They're probably going to be like 20.
I think they were higher than 12 even for me. And
they could have been
very high. So yeah, some fallers. Patriots
tackle issues. It'd be nice if they had Chubb.
Do the
Patriots? I was going to bring them up. That I'm not jumping on that train, but I do think they might be harder to play against than we think. Like their O-line held up well. Ramondre Stevenson looked great.
I mean, that's a great season for the Patriots. We're harder to play against than you think. We didn't lose all of the mojo when Bill left the building, and we're going to develop our young quarterback, and that's going to be fun to rally behind him in the second half of the year.
Every Patriot fan should say, "I'll take that. I'm not going fish. I'm not taking door number 2. I'll take that for this year. I don't care what the record is." But
all right, we'll see what changes in week 2. Hit us with your mailbag questions for our Wednesday episode at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Drop a question in the YouTube comments. Make sure you subscribe while you are there. Matt and I back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.